The Steelers' offense came out of the gate swinging.
And the play action pass, rolling out as a man wide open. It's Darnell Washington at the 40, rumbling up the right sideline. A quick play action to a wide open Darnell Washington. 44-yard attempt here by Boswell. Kuntz the snap to hold, and the kick is up, and it is drilled right down the middle.
Aaron Rodgers came out clicking in the second half.
Rodgers under center as Rodgers gets a snap. Play action pass, rolling to his right, looking downfield, looking, throws back across his body, and caught in the end zone. What a grab by Connor Hayward. Magnificent throw by Rodgers, and Hayward with his first touchdown of the season.
I just keep checking my bingo card for all the different guys that get involved for touchdowns. The fourth tight end that's caught a catch today in this game alone.
The Steelers look to break the game open on their next drive.
Darnell Washington is the tight end. Rodgers gets the snap. Back to pass, looking, pump fakes to the right. Now wants to go to Metcalf. Has him in the end zone. Touchdown to Kalen Metcalf. Pittsburgh Steelers score to go up 22-6 pending the extra point.
Beautiful play design. You came off of running the football, now change of the quarter, change of direction, and now you can kind of take a small sigh of relief.
The defense killed any remaining hope for a Browns comeback.
Crowd up and roaring. They want to see the defense end this game right here. Gabriel gets the snap, back to pass, pressure coming, throws over the middle of the field, incomplete, intended for Fannin as the ball is deflected and wobbles into the end zone, lands on the grass here at Acrisure Stadium, and they will win the game for the fourth time this season. That is the end of the game with the final score, the Steelers 23, the Browns 9.
Here we go. This pass is caught, and that's a touchdown. That's the way to work. Come on. He's hit that sack. The Steelers win the football game. Let's go. Come get it. You know what it is.
This one is in the history books.
Here we go.
Welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. I'm Missy Matthews. The Steelers returned home to Acrisure for the first time in a month on Sunday. It's their first of two AFC North games. And as Coach Tomlin always likes to say, it gets hot in the kitchen when talking about divisional play. But luckily for Pittsburgh, they didn't have to warm up to the competition coming off of their bye week. Let's send it over to Bob Pompeani, who's with Coach Tomlin, for more on the Steelers' first AFC North victory. Guys.
Hey, Missy, thanks very much. Steelers win big at home, take care of business to get to 4-1 as everybody else in the division lost for the second week in a row. So head coach Mike Tomlin is here, and I noticed, and you talked about it after the game, that you introduced 12 defenders because of the impact that Nick Herbig has made. Just talk about that decision, and obviously it worked well because he was excited about that.
You know, we've done it at times in the past when we feel like somebody's legitimately a component of the collective. Young William Gay years ago used to get introduced. We used to introduce 5 secondary people, for example, and certainly just based on the trajectory of his career and particularly his production as of late, just feels like Herbig is deserving of that. He stepped up and delivered for us big. When Highsmith was out, Highsmith is back, but you can't deny what we've seen from him from a playmaking perspective, and so it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I covet as a coach, trying to find enough space for a bunch of good players. And we were able to walk that tightrope in the game against Cleveland and play all of those guys, and all of those guys have an impact. And I just think the introduction is just a component of that mindset.
Let's talk about your defense overall, because it was flowing to the football. There was a lot of physicality involved. We saw that more so in Minnesota and Dublin. It carried over into this week. When you got your whole team healthy, and it was as healthy as it could be, I guess, at that point, that's what you were talking about at the beginning of the season when you had such high expectations, I bet. Certainly.
You know, things happen during the course of a season, and we certainly don't seek comfort in terms of player availability. We got a job to do, and our business is winning. But oftentimes what that looks like can differ based on player availability. And so we've been doing what we've had to do to win games. But certainly it's exciting to get Derek Harmon back. It's exciting to get Highsmith back, Joey Porter Jr., Deshaun Elliott. I mean, those are some impactful players, man, and I think you feel that impact when you watch the collective work as we start to get all of those guys up and running.
You had a mindset last week, talked about stopping the run game, which is always a big point of emphasis, but with a guy like Judkins who had been running the ball very well, you kind of neutralized him, and I don't know many people expected 58 dropbacks from a rookie quarterback. It says a lot about why you've had success against rookie quarterbacks. That was the game plan, executed as you thought.
And not only their dynamic runner, but the most stable and veteran component of their offense is Teller, Pulsic, and Batonio. That interior three in the offensive line. And so certainly 10 had our attention because he was the ball carrier, but we had to wage a war against those interior three veteran players. And I think we largely did that, and we played the game on our terms because of it. As you mentioned, they had a bunch of one-dimensional drop-back circumstances and just a lot of exposure for a young quarterback versus a good defense is usually not good.
Jalen Ramsey, once again you spoke, and so did Aaron Rodgers after the game about what he meant. The fact that he had 2 sacks and never before had a multi-sack game was pretty interesting on the field, as he said, with T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett. He'll tell his kids about that for a long time.
We're just having a lot of fun working with him, be honest with you. First, his passion for the game is awesome. It's contagious. We love his demeanor. He's very smart. He's physically versatile, and that's where the fun lies. Man, week in and week out, we get to choose how we want to deploy him. We were interested in stopping the run, and so we played him inside and wanted to bring him some. We ran into a couple play passes. He got a couple of sacks, and I just think week in and week out, man, it's really exciting what you can do with a player like him. Certainly this week versus Cincinnati, man, they got a couple wideouts that are probably worthy of his attention.
Offensively, you guys came out with a formation I thought many people thought you might carry over from Minnesota with Anderson and Washington, but that play call was really something unexpected. When did you determine that was going to be the first play of the game? And boy, for 36 yards, it was terrific.
Very, very early in the week. That's just a component of strategy, playing off of what's on tape. Largely, everyone knows what our personality is when we go to those big bodies. But from time to time, man, we're going to utilize that reputation and that collection of plays to produce opportunities in other areas. And we thought doing it early would provide an opportunity for us. But it's also done to neutralize defensive personnels. As I mentioned earlier in the week, man, when you play 4-3 teams with those big 300-pound edge people out in the C and D gap area, you got to match that with like bodies. And so just really appreciative of the effort of Spencer Anderson and Darnell, man. It's much needed. And it's going to be needed again as we continue through this journey. We got another 4-3 team this week in the form of the Cincinnati Bengals, for example. And
your run game, too. You've gone to it. It hasn't had crazy numbers, but it's been very successful. And yesterday, or on Sunday, you used 3 different running backs, especially Caleb Johnson. When he got in there, he seemed to really, do well in that role, limited as it was.
Yeah, we're just trying to, catch our footing from a cohesion perspective, particularly with our guys up front. It's not an instant thing. As much as we would like it to be, it's not an instant thing to find that type of cohesion to have an effective run game, but it certainly feels like in recent weeks we're gaining our footing. And that's displayed in the direction that the power falls, the energy in which the bigs play, and a component of it also is winning third downs. When you win enough third downs, you're able to establish that rhythm and wage the war of attrition. And so all things are pointed in the right direction in that area.
One thing we saw also was your ability to roll Aaron Rodgers out away from Myles Garrett at times. And in that role, he was 5 for 6 for 85 yards and a touchdown. That's something that even though he's not a runner, you don't expect him to. How much does that help him in his ability to make those plays on the run?
It's certainly helpful to him and it's helpful to us. It's just changing the launch point. It's built off of the run game. To minimize his exposure to pass rushers, to change the launch point so that situations aren't so one-dimensional. And certainly it's been an agenda of ours, not only with Aaron, but since Arthur's been here. Is one of the components of his schematics that really attracted me to him. Not only the commitment to the run, but the corresponding play play pass and the misdirection pass that kind of brings it all together.
All right, Coach, thanks very much for that. Steelers win. They're 4-1, and now they head to Cincinnati. We'll talk about the Bengals, who lost on Sunday to the Packers. When we come back, Missy, let's hand it back to you.
All right, Bob. Yes, it is crunch time on a short week. But before we get to Thursday night, we should remind fans that Cleveland has now lost 22 straight regular season games here in Pittsburgh, the longest active streak in the NFL. Coming up later in our show, a new playbook from Merrill Hodge on how Aaron Rodgers and company can manipulate Cincinnati's defense. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Well, the Steelers and Bengals are no strangers, and neither is quarterback Joe Flacco. The former Raven has faced the Steelers 22 times, including last season when he was with the Colts. For more on Flacco and his new team with this Thursday night matchup, let's send it back to Bob and Coach. Guys.
All right, Missy, thanks very much. Now it is on to Cincinnati, Week 7. This is the first game of Week 7. It's a Thursday night game. Head coach Mike Tomlin talking about a familiar opponent, which is Cincinnati. Now, I'm curious, you know them, they know you. It's a short week. Is there any thought of doing something that you haven't done, to change the dynamic on a short week?
Certainly, you always want to go into a game and carry some things that are somewhat of a surprise. But you're challenged on a short week because you only get so many physical repetitions at the development of it. And so largely you go with things that are in your wheelhouse. And if it's something that you're targeting, it's in a really specific area because of the limited physical rep opportunities. Or it's something that you've worked at in the past and you just have chosen to squirrel away for an appropriate time, which oftentimes happens. You'll work on something and fine tune it during team development in the preseason and save it for divisional play. And so that's a component of it, but there are complexities. There's a texture to these divisional relationships, and we respect that component of it. It's what makes it challenging and fun. A component of this one that's a challenge is Al Golden is new in his role. And so, particularly on a short week, it has our attention from an offensive perspective, preparing for the schematics that we're going to get from him and them.
Joe Flacco traded to Cincinnati. It's interesting how it went. Saw him earlier in the year take on Green Bay as a Brown. He did it this past week as a Bengal, and he looked, pretty good, given the fact he just arrived. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, whereas interceptions had been a problem. You know him well. He knows you well. How does that all work out?
I certainly see why the Bengals would be attracted to him. His arm talent is still very legitimate. Above the neck, he's a really quick and fluid processor. He's just a been there and done that guy. He's got a real steady demeanor, and particularly with the circumstances that they're in, it's just great to have that calming presence, if you will. And so I'm not surprised of their interest in him. I certainly got a lot of respect for his capabilities. We got an all-day job ahead of us in terms of minimizing him and them.
Also, the 2 wideouts. He comes into a team that has 2 guys and he could really get involved. He did the other day. Jamar Chase had his best day as a Bengal in 2025 with Joe Flacco, just there for 2 days. Those 2 guys present different problems, obviously. You have to be aware of both. How do you neutralize those guys?
Neutralize is an interesting word because with 2 of them and as talented as they are, I don't know if that's the appropriate word. I think you work to minimize them, and particularly in certain moments, possession downs, red zone, things where they excel and really impact the game. You better focus your schematics on warding off some of that. It's more than just putting a good player on them and wishing that good player good luck. We as coaches got to absorb some of the responsibility. Certainly it's an 11-on-11 football game, and so it's a strategy component of it, and that's why you got to pick your spots. But Chase is a dynamic guy on possession downs. Higgins is a dynamic guy in the red zone. They're both generally dynamic. And so we're going to walk that tightrope, man, and hopefully we do it successfully.
They've been prone to give up some sacks. You guys are on a roll with sacks. I think it's 17 in the last 3 weeks. What's been the secret to that, and what do you have to do to continue that trend against this team?
For us, it's about opportunity. And we get ahead in football games, man, you're going to feel it. From us, we've been ahead in some football games in the last couple of weeks, and so you feel it. And so some of it has nothing to do with the defense whatsoever or the offense that we face. It just might be as simple as our offense scoring touchdowns as opposed to field goals, our offense converting third downs or not converting third downs. And so that's just the nature of it. I think that's what makes this the ultimate team game. I think those us that are in it really understand it. I think each and every week we have the type of rush that's capable of really taking over a football game, but the circumstances has to be there. And that's why it's so important that we play complementary football and we play as a overall 53-man collective.
All right, Steelers and Bengals coming at you on Thursday. That's going to be very interesting to see this matchup on Thursday night as the Bengals right now really struggling. They need to get a win, but the Steelers could really take control of this division with a win on Thursday. When we come back, we're going to hear Mike Tomlin and his keys to this game. That's when we return. Missy, back to you.
All right, guys, that sounds good. And in terms of the rest of the AFC North, the Browns are going to host the Dolphins, and the Ravens have a bye this week. Up next on the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show, Merrill Hodge draws up how he would attack the Bengals defense, who is under a new coordinator this season. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Show off your black and gold knowledge with Immaculate Prediction, the Steelers' predictive game that gives you a chance to win some great prizes. Here's one of this week's questions. Will Nick Herbig have more than one sack against the Bengals? Yes or no? Just head to the Steelers mobile app now to compete for this week's first place prize, a football autographed by number 51. Good luck. Well, Joe Flacco wasn't the only new QB for the Bengals in Week 6. On the defensive side of the ball, they turned to rookie linebacker Barrett Carter to wear the green dot and quarterback the defense. For more on how Merrill Hodge thinks Pittsburgh can expose them, here's this week's playbook.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for the playbook, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals defense, they have struggled a lot this year. They got a new coordinator, they got a lot of new faces. And the area that they struggle the most in, which is actually a challenge most defenses have, is when you do a lot of misdirection. You know, it looks like one thing and then it turns into another. And having all 11 guys accounted for and on the same page is a struggle for any defense, but the Bengals have really struggled with it. In the Monday night game, even formations they struggle with. You can tell right now they're confused with this formation that the Broncos have. They're pointing to each other. If we roll it, you'll see that they finally get lined up, but it's actually a little too late. Now when they snap the ball, watch this. Now they paralyze the box. Everybody attacks the line of scrimmage. It looks like run. It feels like run to them. But now Bo Nix will keep it, and he boots to the right. Now this is when the confusion happens. Look at all the guys that are open. I mean, they're unaccounted for because everybody has gotten frozen into the box, and now they've forgotten who they've got coverage on in the passing game. So Bo Nix has all kinds of options. As we let it go, you're going to see he ends up throwing it to the tight end and gets a big, big play from a guy that's unaccounted for. And this has happened time and time again. You know, the Lions saw that on tape, so they tried some of the stuff. You know, they bring the formation tight, and this looks like run. And so the very first part of this, the Lions make it look like run. So as we let it roll, you'll see what happens to the box. Is they turn around and stop right there and make it look like run. Look at everybody's attacking the box. Again, they paralyzed the box. And when we let the tape roll a little bit, you'll see as the quarterback boots out, you got guys unaccounted for again. You know, they've done a good job of getting to where their run fit is, but they've forgotten who their coverage is. And this has happened time and time again. They end up dumping it to the tight end here. We can let it roll. And that's about the simplest pass you can have in the NFL, and it's an explosive play. And it's a damaging play. So these things they've struggled with. There is no doubt that the Steelers will attack this and see if they have been more buttoned up in this particular area.
And you can catch all of Merrill's playbooks on the team's official YouTube page. Well, Thursday Night Football has not been kind to the Steelers recently, especially on the road. Pittsburgh is 2-9 on Thursday nights away from home under Coach Tomlin, and during that span, they haven't beat a division opponent on the road. So for more on how they can right the ship on a short week, it's time for the Keys to the Game presented by your neighborhood Ford store. Let's send it back to Bob and Coach. Guys.
Missy, thanks very much. Now it's Cincinnati. Steelers go there on a Thursday night. Coach, keys to the game because they're always important. What are yours?
You know, the first component is the environment. I imagine it's going to be a hostile environment. It always is. This rivalry has a heated history, if you will. And so a Thursday night environment is going to be a special one. Secondarily, man, I just think their second week out with Joe has got a reasonable opportunity for them to be much better. They have the experience of having been in the stadium with him. He's worked with those guys at full speed, under full speed circumstances. Their cohesion, his anticipation has a chance to be a notch better. And so, man, we got an all-day job ahead of us, particularly managing Joe Flacco and his eligibles on that side. On the other side, the short week component of it makes it challenging because we're new to Al Golden. Al Golden, I think this is his first opportunity to coordinate in the NFL, and so we don't have a large history, if you will, to study and look at. A week ago, we played Jim Schwartz. I've been competing against Jim Schwartz for 20 plus years. And so you lean in on a week and you have a certain anticipation of what the bugaboos are, what should have your attention. And we have somewhat of a blank slate because Al is new, and you couple that with a short week, man, it creates a little anxiety from a preparation standpoint.
Coach, thanks very much and all the best in Cincinnati.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. We'll get back at you next week as the Steelers get ready for the Green Bay Packers. That's going to do it for Missy Matthews and head coach Mike Tomlin. I'm Bob Pompeani. Have a great Steelers Thursday, and we'll see you next week.